Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Lips. It's your girl, Miss Mouthy, and I came to bring you another episode of the Miss Mouthy podcast. If this is your first time tuning out to this channel, this is the Miss Mouthy podcast where I center the narratives and experiences of trans and non binary folks and the allies that love and support us. And if you're a returning set of lips, hey, y'all. Thank y'all for coming back another week to come hang out with your girl. I'm trying not to cuss as much. I'm working on myself this week. If y'all know, the last time we did an episode, we actually were in the park. So we did this whole community thing. Shout out to everybody at the Pull Up Project that came along in Detroit, and we had all the resources, and we talked about prep and all the health benefits to like knowing your status and all the resources that's available. But also, we also had a real honest community conversation about what it is that we need, the issues that we face, and just letting people be vulnerable in that space. And one thing I think I recognized was that sometimes you can't always expect people to come to you. Sometimes you got to go and find the people and you got to be amongst community. But today, I like to entitle this episode Being Black in August. One thing I recognize about August, it's just that month to be as black as you can be as proud as you can be, and be as true to yourself as you can be. And y'all know what I'm talking about. If y'all don't know, I'm sitting in a what? A cheer. And so when we think about this month and what's been going on social media with these cheers and just letting people know where it's at, my black people have been making me happy. But today we have a very, very, very special guest in the building that's really like one of the biggest people to teach me about Black August and what that was and all the things. And so, special guest, can you introduce yourself for the people?
Hey, what's up? What's up? My name is Eli, and I'm a proud uncle. I'm a big kid.
Period.
I'm somebody who is very loved, and that love pours over, and I choose to share it with others through play, exploration, popular and political education. I'm a lover of adventures.
Okay, period.
Love guided me to Detroit, Michigan. I'm originally from New York, and that love is Aya Simone.
Hey,
I'm goofy. I love to make people laugh. I'm a cultural worker, so just to name some of the organization I'm a part of that
yeah,
I will speak on is I'm part of a SERE, which is a Red Barrier Afrodescendiente Network. It's an organization based in Cuba focused on anti-racism.
nice.
I would drop all the links to Miss Mouthy so she can make
Period.
those
Put y'all
available
in
to
plug,
y'all.
y'all.
Right. Black Trans Media is my political home. I'm on the Black Trans Fund Advisory Committee. I'm the communications director, and I contribute to the organizational strategy and grassroots fundraising for Black Trans Travel Fund. I'm also the communications director for a Black trans feminist abolitionist organization by the name of Transgender, Gender Variant, Intersex Justice Project, also known as TGIJP or
Period.
TGI Justice Project. That's based in San Francisco. I'm almost done, y'all. My
No, no.
bad.
Resume.
Right. I'm currently in the works of consulting a Black trans led organization in Cuba, Red Afro Cuba Trans. They're a network for Cuba trans people connecting with those in solidarity to provide them with resources, especially due to the blockade. I'm working on a project with my dear brother and comrade X Xavier. It's a participatory action research project. And
Mhm.
pretty much in short, we're building a survey for Black trans masculine of center people by us. And so, yeah, I love hosting events and creating spaces for African TLGBTQ people, especially TGNC folks. I'm long winded. I could go on forever.
And we love it.
Yeah.
And we love it. That's what the fuck I'm talking about when I say introduce yourself and you pop your shit. Like that makes me so proud with like all the things that you. This is a heavy hitter. Like I don't know if you get your roses enough, but I always want to give you your roses to like what you do for our community, how you show up is just so impactful. And I've seen how you've been in space and changed lives and touched folks and helped me personally. You have educated me in so many ways, and I thank you for that. Like especially just coming from somebody who wants to pour into someone and see value. So welcome. I'm
So
glad.
if I wanted to share this on my Facebook book, I would just go on and be
Hmm.
like, okay,
And then you just share
let
it
the
and then
people know. All right, bet.
all the things. So talking about August and all the things, I remember a year ago from sometime this You were the first person to teach me about Black August, and I feel like it's so important for my listeners that may not know what that is or been hip, because I don't know where the fuck I was living. I was living on a rock somewhere. Like, I don't know why I didn't know about this. But what is Black August, Eli?
So I will say it's not that you're living under a rock. You're living within the U.S. imperialist state that spends
Period.
billions of dollars to, put media onto us to straight up distract us
Yeah.
from, Black liberation of African people.
Yeah.
So you wasn't living under a rock.
Okay,
You was
thank
living
you.
in the United States.
I
All
was like,
right.
damn, I'm supposed to know this. I should know this.
No, you know now, and
Yeah.
I love that you have me here to kind of talk about it. I do think it's powerful that I'm here to talk about it because as a principled person, as a person who tries to be very like principled and aligned with my values in
Hmm.
practice. I love that I'm here to kind of talk about Black August because, as with a lot of things, they get co-opted.
Yeah.
Whether it's the nonprofit industrial complex, whether it's the pseudo nonsense, whatever it is. Again, the United States as an imperial, colony, it spends billions of dollars to support a certain type of message, and the message is not, liberation of African people. So, with that said, I will share with y'all a bit. So, Black August is a month to commemorate the fallen freedom fighters. So, it's really to bring attention to and advocate for the release of political prisoners, and to sharpen our discipline to
Mm.
organize through practicing studying, training, fasting, just to name a few. So I'll just keep going a little bit because
Yeah.
it's a full story. So for me, I got introduced to Black August by a fellow Black trans masculine person, and I
Hmm.
felt the same way you did. Kazembe introduced me, and I was like, "What's this?" And they sent me a
Hmm.
month, and it was like fast and study and this, and I spent a few Black Augusts where I abstained from a variety of things. I
Hmm.
do it in different ways where I strengthen my discipline. So I'll go straight into just how important it is about understanding the roots of Black August
Yeah.
because it started with those organizing in San Quentin, California, right? So they formed a Black August committee as a way to bring prison organizing, bring attention to prison organizing around the conditions of Black people that are incarcerated in the U.S., particularly in San Quentin in California. So the intention behind Black August was to commemorate actions of those fallen behind the walls, to educate and to advocate around the rights of incarcerated people, especially Black African folks, new Africans behind the walls, and those segregated, like with the emphasis. So at the top of Black August, what I did to give y'all possibility models
Yeah.
was I checked out the true history of Black August. Again, I'll make sure I drop all links of everything that I cite with Miss Mouthy so y'all can have
Mhm.
access to these sources. And at Black Power Media was where it was housed. And Mama Ayana Mashama is a veteran organizer and the co-founder of Black August Organizing Committee. And she shared the history, the roots, and the intention behind Black August. So I like to share that because, with a lot of things from Juneteenth,
Mhm.
Black August, these things get co-opted in a capitalist way,
They do.
and I'm here to name names to keep it on the playground. So
Okay,
Tariq
period.
Nasheed, that fool, has some kind of event for Black August. I think it's a comedy show.
Okay.
And one thing I appreciated about watching the video on Black Power Media with Mama Ayana was she named that this is not a time to celebrate. We
Mhm.
have plenty of times to celebrate. This is a time, if you want to bring joy in it, you bring joy in your discipline.
Mhm.
She named that this is a time to be serious.
Yeah.
And because this is a serious subject, we're talking about our people who are behind the walls,
Yeah.
who are being held hostage. We just have to hold the lines when it comes to these things. And I'm really honored to be here to share with Black TGNC folks, Black
Yeah.
TLGBTQ folks, and our accomplices, folks that are in solidarity with us, really what Black August is, so we could stay with the roots, so people could know how to properly approach this month.
Yeah. I think that's really important because one of the things that I see too often is that once our folks is locked up, and I'm guilty of it, and I had to learn how to be more intentional and mindful, is that like it's a part of me that forgot. Like I
Hmm.
forgot that they were out here with us and they were
Hmm.
in community. And so
Hmm.
like this month really highlights that, and I'm glad that that is something that happens. Like I'm
Hmm.
glad that it's bringing attention to it, because
Hmm.
when you the thing about it is, once you become the person who was out in
Hmm.
community and then you behind bars,
Hmm.
now the people forget about you and they
Hmm.
forget about the message. So
Yes, and that's why. So, like for Black August, the focus is, of course, political prisoners, and I appreciate that. And what Mama Ayana pretty much shared, which I really liked, was, if you choose to, for example, let's say there may be people who's watching this who's TLGBTQ, right,
hmm
trans, gender nonconforming. They may be asking, all right, Eli, what's the connection between
hmm
Black August and the trans liberation movement,
yeah.
right? What is the connection? And what I would like to tell people is, just a little bit of history helps us. Um, One, I brought this book in here with me, which is Soledad Brothers. This is
Period.
Prison Letters of George Jackson. I read this last Black August. Highly suggest you all read this. And the connection, right? It's so deep because I'm actually trying to write something on it right now. But
Okay.
one connection I'll draw with y'all is that, um, so just a little bit of history. So there was an uprising in the Attica prisons, right? And if people didn't know, Miss Major, was in Attica prison after the uprising. There's I'm still doing
Mm,
a lot of my research. We definitely need more Black trans griots out there.
yeah.
Rest in peace, Monica, because we need people to tell our stories so
No,
that
for
we can
real.
have the truth. But so she was in that prison where she connected with Big Black, who Big Black was a part of the Attica uprisings.
hmm
So there are interviews out there where Miss Major talks about connecting and learning from people that were incarcerated in Attica during that uprising, how it kind of almost like radicalized her, further radicalized her. Because I say
hmm
Mama Major came out radicalized,
Period.
but further radicalized her and strengthened her analysis around prison abolition,
hmm
and and yeah, prison abolition and the prison industrial complex, to where when she came home, it kind of helped shape some of the work that we see has been built upon with TGIJP and also the other projects that she's been involved
Yeah.
in. So that's kind of the connection where, we had one of our elders were incarcerated in a prison that had an uprising, and she was there shortly after, and she gained a lot of knowledge, and she brought that knowledge when she got out. She continued to build advocacy networks for people on the inside and to build places for people on the inside to be in leadership positions, because the people on the inside know the best what they need.
Yeah.
That they lead this prison abolition. They lead the prison abolition movement.
Yeah.
And if we let the academics or even people like myself begin to position ourselves as the leaders of this, we've lost sight of it.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of the connection it has. And there's definitely a lot more, but just to get people started on a little bit of history.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And like, you made a really good point on like what it takes to be in leadership and those things. Why is it so important that we have TG and C folks in those leadership roles and making space for us to be able to make that movement happen?
So you know, Black-led TGNC spaces are important because it offers us an opportunity to engage in storytelling,
Yeah.
which allows us to draw connections between our experiences and find patterns that we share as community. So when these spaces are held with a solid Black liberation political analysis, it offers a chance to create study groups and other activities for political education, as well as strategize and plan for action. Overall, it offers an opportunity for us to organize.
Yeah. That is so wonderful. And like, I know you talked about the things that you're doing over at TGIJP. What
Mhm.
is like some of the core like values or projects or like lenses y'all just work from?
So I could just name a little bit about the projects we work with and like where we come from. So as I named earlier, I work with a few different organizations, and TGI Justice Project, who's focused on policy and advocacy work,
Mhm.
with the focus on those who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated, TGI people, so transgender, gender variant, and intersex folks, especially the most impacted. And when we say the most impacted, we mean Black and Brown, TGI folks, disabled folks, Black trans women,
Mhm.
like that. Um, so this work is performed at the intersection of race, class, sexuality, and gender. So TGIJP is a Black trans feminist abolitionist organization. Now, I also brought another book here with me, Angela Davis's
Oh,
Freedom is a
I love
Constant
her.
Struggle. Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement. And I did want to share, like, as we're
Yeah.
talking a little bit,
Go ahead.
just a few pieces of it on page 98. This is where she speaks about TGIJP, and she says, now TGI Justice Project is a grassroots organization that advocates for, defends, and includes primarily trans women and trans women of color. These are women who have to fight to be included within the category of woman in a way that is not dissimilar from the earlier struggles of Black women and women of color who were assigned the gender female at birth. Moreover, they have worked out what I see as a deeply feminist approach that we would do well to understand and emulate. So, um, she goes on to talk about how, and I quote, the work of TGIJP is deeply feminist because it is performed at the intersection of race, class, sexuality, and gender, and because it moves from addressing the individual predicaments of the members of community who constitute the individuals who are most harassed by law enforcement, most arrested and incarcerated, to larger questions of the prison industrial complex. Trans women of color end up primarily in male prisons, especially if they have not undergone gender reassignment surgery, which many of them don't want to undergo that surgery.
Right.
So pretty much TGIJP, kind of moves in the spirit of Black August, like we are adamant on our unorthodox ways sometimes of fighting against the prison industrial complex. Decarceration ultimately is the goal, getting people out of prisons, keeping people out of prisons. And in abolition, a lot of times you hear dismantle, abolish, destroy. And there's another piece that, as a learning abolitionist, I like to share, that there's to build. And to me, TGIJP is a possibility model for what it looks like to build institutions that'll exist outside of the fall of the U.S. imperialist, state. So what I mean by that is we don't just look at like when you're inside. We look at when you come home. Our CEO, Janetta Johnson, just likes to really bring home what people need when they come home.
Yeah.
People need housing.
Yeah.
People need jobs, to have
they
the
do.
housing. And people need recidivism efforts to keep them out. It's if you've ever had any direct contact with the prison industrial complex, which unfortunately a lot of us have in a variety of ways, that like you can get out on parole, you get on probation, and there's all these things that you can do to violate that are like very basic things.
Yeah. To send you right back.
Like, what you gonna do if you can't get a job?
Yeah.
So now it's like I wish I want to come back and talk with you more, actually, because
you're always welcome. You can always come back.
because it just makes me start to think of the ways in which and I'll speak to a little bit of what George Jackson writes,
Yes, of course.
to kind of bring it home, is that so he says in Soledad Brother, page 263, he says, we need allies. We have a powerful enemy who cannot be defeated without an ally effort. The enemy at present is the capitalist system and its supporters. Our prime interest is to destroy them. Anyone else with this same interest must be embraced. We must work with, beside, through, over, under anyone, regardless of their external physical features, whose aim is the same as ours in this. Capitalism must be destroyed. And after it is destroyed, if we find that we still have problems, we'll work them out. That the nature of life, struggle, permanent revolution, that is the situation we were born into. There are other peoples on this earth. And then on the next page, he goes into something that I think is very important when we're tying together like the struggles and the principles and stuff. And I quote, he says, we must establish a true internationalism with other anti-colonial people. Then we will be on the road of the true revolutionary. Only then can we expect to be able to seize the power that is rightfully ours, the power to control the circumstances of our day-to-day lives. So I say that to say that like in the work that we're doing, it's a lot deeper than just the prison industrial complex, because again, we're working to build institutions outside of the currently oppressive systems that actually exist, that make it hard to even stay out of the prison industrial complex.
No, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because like one of the biggest things of like people always ask, how can they be allies to every movement or support every cause when like every way in which people who ask about allyship don't take the time to really understand what it
Mm,
is that they want to help with, and then like what does being across and like supporting me look like in
mm.
times of outside of 9 to 5 or outside of your comfortability. So like, could you speak to like what's important in modelships when it comes to people wanting to support the efforts either of the orgs that you work with or this month?
Yeah, so I'll definitely get a little into that. I got caught up in TGIJP because the work we do is so
No, you
powerful, but
okay?
I definitely wanted to bring into focus also Black trans media
Yeah.
that exists to shift and reframe the power and worth of Black trans and GNC people through media. So Black trans media is my political home. That is where I learned to do a lot of storytelling
Yeah.
with the political analysis. That is where I've engaged in political education, and I've also had opportunities to facilitate and also build my skills in storytelling. Excuse me, we can look at right now what's happening with the
Yeah.
strike, the writer strike, right?
Yeah.
Look at media. Media is being, my homegirl Fatima said it, and then I've also heard other people say it, is being revolutionized in a way where there's an opportunity for us to take media back almost and take away the power that these Hollywood people
Well,
have.
have been
Like
having.
straight up and down, shout out to Hootie and them and Hoochie Daddies
Yeah.
because we need more of that. I don't know
Yeah.
if y'all seen it. It's on Tubi. Hoochie Daddies is a
Yeah, we
reality
ain't
show.
there. Okay.
Y'all need to watch it. It's dope. I've seen critiques about it, and people are like, "Oh, well, we're starved for representation." Maybe you're right, but also this is the time for us to take our, media back. And Black trans media definitely does something of the sort with the
Yes.
political analysis that, you know, I feel like moves people to get organized, and again to tell our stories. We're the best tellers of our own stories.
Yeah.
If we let other people tell them, we already see what's going to happen. And then Black Trans Travel Fund, exists primarily in New York to help the girls get rides, but does so many things. Like
Yeah.
we're internationally connected. And, through that work, we're allowed to assist people with getting their basic needs met.
Mhm.
And then with Black Trans Fund, shout out to Brie Rivera.
Period.
That is my sister, my comrade. Just definitely somebody who's a visionary, a dreamer. And
Yes.
Black Trans Fund has actually funded so many, I didn't write down the amount, but so many Black trans led initiatives pretty much focused on our joy and liberation.
Yeah.
So with that said, um, I don't even like the word ally, y'all. I don't like the word
Yeah.
ally. For I
Me.
use it as a key. I use ally like when I'm pretending to be cisgender heterosexual. I'll be like,
Okay. Here, talk about it.
I'd be like, yeah, I'm an ally of the
Yeah.
community. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I'm here for y'all.
It's a key to me, ally, that word. And I know that it's still a good thing. I know words mean things. And um, what I will say is I forget the place I heard it from, but I enjoyed it so much when I heard it. And they was like, man, fuck an ally. I
Hmm.
want an accomplice. And I was like, ooh, I like the way that
Yeah.
sounds. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's more like it. Um, yeah. So when I think of the ways people can support the efforts of TGNC people, it's matter of factly taking action, and that's in various forms. So the first form, and I won't say the laziest form because I'm not going to use that. I won't say the laziest, but I will say probably depending on your situation, maybe, and I can't even say the easiest, right? Because
Right.
whatever. But
Yeah.
donating money to organization efforts that specifically, and this is very important because I know they did an era of give your money
Hmm.
to,
Hmm.
but I say donate your money specifically to efforts that will not be funded by the oppressors,
Yeah.
right? So, and these efforts should be efforts that work for the advocacy and the rights of TGNC people. You can also volunteer at these places. A step further would be to get politically educated,
Yeah.
specifically about imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist, cis hetero patriarchy. That's a lot of words. That's all
Yeah.
right. That's why I'm going to give y'all some resources.
Yeah.
But again, the step further is to get politically educated about imperialist, white supremacists, capitalists, cis hetero patriarchy. That's why I bought these books in the building, because I don't just be talking my talk. I like to cite it. I like to let
Yeah.
people know where it comes from. Y'all are going to often hear me Even if I can't remember the person, I'm gonna shout them out so that if they see me, they're like, "Oh, it was me,"
Yeah.
um, And if I remember their name, I'm gonna say their name, because I just think it's important. Also, straight up and down, a lot of my political education in the course have come from women,
Hmm.
and femmes and black women. I mean, when I say women, of course, but black women. So we gonna give them their things,
Yeah.
and so yeah, you can join a study group. You could create a study group. For example, a place like Black Alliance for Peace have teaching guides that are
Mm.
available for you to use and engage your people. So you like there are literally curriculums and guides and
Right.
things already made where all you got to do is utilize the space you're in, and get your people, educated. And most importantly, for me, most importantly, I just tweeted about this the other day. If you're trying to be an ally or accomplice or whatever you are going to call it, if you're going to be in solidarity with our fight, be mindful of whether you're performing the support or you're
Mm.
practicing it.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to holler at me for an consult
Hmm.
on what that looks like,
Boom, boom.
y'all can holler at me. But yes, be sure that you're not performing the support; you're actually practicing it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. One of the biggest things too with all this work, I notice sometimes it can be very strenuous or like exhausting. How do you center joy and liberation for yourself or find it in the work that you do?
So, I center joy in my life and work through my commitment to the fight for African liberation,
Mm.
especially African TGNC peoples all over the world. So, I'll start with just I like to come up with creative ways to introduce people to organizing and political education as my entry point. Was through the TLGBTQ nightlife in Orlando, Florida. Shout out
Mm.
to Dose. Shout out to Orlando. Shout out to Central Florida.
Period.
Fuck all them laws they trying to put on y'all.
Yeah.
We will resist. Um, Now I have the honor of working across the globe in various efforts to organize, educate, and strategize, as well as study with African TLGBTQ people, especially TGNC people, and those in solidarity with us. So, if you know me or know of me, I travel a lot, and that's definitely how I get my joy. I try to do it in the most responsible ways possible, but really, I have a calling to um, move around and connect people to
Hmm.
resources, connect people to knowledge, connect people to people. And, I get my joy through love, the love of my partner, Aya Simone, the love of my partner, Grace Hines, the love of my parent, my mom, shout out to her, my dad, shout out to him in New York, my
Hmm.
grandma. Um, Spending quality time with my friends is very important to me. I get my joy through, again, it's the commitment to this struggle, like in this capitalist society, we are often isolated, we're often
Yeah.
alone. So one of the things I like to do is just on a very day-to-day basis is do basic things that I would already do and do them with my people.
Yeah.
So go to the laundromat, go
Yeah.
to the PO box. I like to keep it very simple because I'm great at grand gestures. And I had to learn over time how to incorporate rest, relaxation, play,
Yeah.
joy into my day to day. So like again, long winded, but I'll say
No.
one way that I like start my day, right? Like how I
Hmm.
start my day is, I did a meditation once that taught me like if you start your day with the things that'll make it a perfect day, no matter what happens that day, you did those things
Yeah.
already. So that's something that I try to do. I try to set a goal to meditate, to move my body. Doesn't always happen because of ADHD, but I do try to set that goal. And then to
Hmm.
play, which includes coloring. I like to color. I like to shout out to Bree, got me into building Legos.
Nice. Uh-huh.
That's a Lego goddess right there.
Hmm.
And then lastly, I would say my connection to youth.
Hmm.
The youth, if you don't have kids, if you're not an active uncle, and if you are just not living a proper life and don't have kids in your world,
In your
you
life.
should shift because children, the amount of joy and possibility in a baby's eyes and
Yeah.
in their voice and in their inquisitive nature, um, that definitely helps bring joy into my life.
Thank you for saying that. And another thing is, you do love to travel. travel. What was the last place you went to? And what you just watching you navigate the world has taught me that we have community and siblings everywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
So I think the last place I was Florida. I
okay.
think Florida was the last place I was domestically. Internationally, the last place I was Cuba.
Mm,
Shout out to my comrades.
okay.
Fuck
Period.
the blockade. Yeah, so the last place I was Florida, where oddly enough, there's a calling that I have where I was born in New York and I went to high school in Florida
Okay.
and spent a good chunk of my life in Florida, as my mother and my grandmother and my sisters are there. And I have a calling right now to do some work out there.
Mm,
Um, it's I founded something called Brother to Brother, which I know the name, but it's something called Brother to Brother, and it's Brother to Brother is pretty much like it's a trip or organization where I pretty much tricked the guys into learning anti-patriarchal
okay.
practices. Like that's again, I like to trick people into learning. So I knew that if I was like, "Hey, what black trans man want to learn about anti-patriarchy?" It was gonna go cricket, cricket. But
Yeah.
then I was like, "Who want to go to Vegas?"
Uh huh.
And it was like, me, 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 me. So, we did Vegas the first year. We did Miami this year, and when we
Okay.
did Miami, we had significantly less amount of people who came. There was a lot of concerns about the space that we chose and the
Mm,
safety. Happy to say nothing happened. We
good.
didn't have any instances outside of what I would like to call the regular transphobia that I deal with.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it wasn't heightened. But what I pretty much explained is that, like for me, I'm rooted in Florida. I can't not go to Florida. Matriarchs are in Florida.
Yeah.
My hearts are in Florida. That Florida actually molded like even where I am today. Like I said, my entry point of organizing started in the nightlife of the TLGBQ in Central
Mm,
Florida. I am very familiar with Pulse. I
okay.
went to a funeral out there. So um, I when I hear our siblings say, well, fuck it, I'm not giving the state no money. We
Mm,
just need to think about that. We're also abandoning our siblings out there who,
mhm,
whether they need access to resources so they can leave, because they might
mhm.
not be able to leave, or they might not be able to leave. They need access to resources to survive
Yeah.
and to resist and to fight. So the project that I named that X and I, um, are putting together the survey that was also done in Florida. Because again, we want to touch the most impacted spots.
Mhm.
So the last place I was in Florida, doing a little organizing work, and yeah, it yeah, traveling definitely does remind me that we're everywhere. I've been to
Mhm.
Jamaica with the people. Shout out to Black Trans Travel Fund. Just got back from Jamaica
That's where I'm going
supporting
next month.
hold
Mhm.
up, supporting the Pride. If you didn't know, there's a Pride in Jamaica, and we are connected. It's always the first week of August.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know about it, and there's a ball in Jamaica on November
Really?
4th. Yes, that Black Trans Travel Fund is supporting and just helping consult on some things and just
Yeah.
provide some you know resources of
Mhm.
variety of sort to connect JA. And
Okay.
yeah, so if y'all are interested in going to Jamaica, but you've heard some of the claims that have been made, which again, I just gotta keep going on podcasts. They're anti-black,
Yeah.
of course, claims. But if you want to get connected with some locals out there, there's Trans Wave out there. Some
Mhm.
people don't know about that. There's an organization for trans people in Jamaica.
Mm.
And just, if people want to go out there and they want to connect and feel safe, we do have SIBs out there, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, that we could connect with.
That makes me feel good because, like, not being funny, this is what I want my platform to be about is people getting information that we wouldn't honestly know had we not had the conversation. But
Hmm.
yeah, one of the biggest things that I think about is like, damn, I want to center my life without being in fearful of existing in a space
Hmm.
depending on who I am. Like,
Hmm.
so I want to travel more, see more of the world, and I've been
Hmm.
very intentional about that as of lately
Hmm.
to really just going out there. So I admire when people actually do that and travel and
Thank you. I'm
do.
also a Sagittarius, so I have no, or as the people will call a Sagittarius. So
Oh, period.
so I have no choice. It was written in my story before me. I really have been traveling before I could walk, and
Okay.
I've been flying on planes since I was 3.
Mm.
Um, and I love traveling by plane, train, automobile. I will walk. I will ride a bike, a bus.
So, period. So, what had brought you? Um, what's the earliest point that you can remember that you had a calling for this work and you started actually doing it and just jumping head into it?
Hmm. So I think I love talking about my background in this because it all started. Hmm. I think I've always had like this one fun fact about me,
Okay,
which I
period.
tell people, and then it's interesting. I was homecoming queen at Point Siena High School.
Oh, for her.
So I ate that because
Down.
all the like the little girly cis girls, they was mad. Y'all could say y'all wasn't mad. They was mad. This is a little butch dyke, like like goofy. I ain't had no swag really then. Like I was still coming into myself. Person one queen because we all know what that's about.
Right.
And I kind of was breaking the barriers then.
Mhm.
Whereas it was very interesting because then as I got older, I would see all the people who were trying to run for king, right? But I
Mhm.
kind of broke it in this different way,
Yeah.
which I'm very proud of that actually, because fuck all that girly
Yeah,
shit.
period.
A queen could be a butch dyke too.
Hello. We're all queens.
Exactly. So I think it started before I could probably even remember, but the point that I knew what I was doing was I'll never forget. So we was doing the club. Shout out to Club Flavors. It was like this dope concept where the club used to move around. Now
Mhm.
the reason it used to move around is because of um, homophobia and anti-blackness.
Mhm.
And Dose is a mass presenting lesbian, and this big like 6 foot like stud trying to get a space was always hard.
Mhm.
For us to get a space to have a party, we either get overcharged or just a whole
All
bunch
the
of
shit.
barriers.
Mhm.
So Dose came up with a dope idea where the party just used to kind of move, and it was so dope because it had be upwards of 500 plus people will come see us from all over Central Florida. And doing that work, nightlife was dope. I was mad young, and I just remember we had a group called Stud Life, and that was organizing. I was the manager of the
Mhm.
group, Stud Life. At one point, it was Stud Life Reloaded. I became the manager, and we used to have meetings and we did cultural work. We used to do drag king shows or shows,
Yeah.
perform. We used to meet at my house. I lived with another brother, June, and they would meet at our house. And I would like even give an example of a thing that we were doing that was like an economic program that I didn't have the language for that then,
Right.
but we had a pot, and we used to from our shows take a percentage and put it in the pot. And
Oh.
then that was back then when your metro bill was like 20, 30, $40.
Mhm.
So then we would build a pot, and if you had a bill, a light bill or something bill that you couldn't really pay, if we doing these shows together, we'll building this pot together, you used to be able to hit us up and say, yo, I need this money for whatever. And then
Mhm.
we would come to a consensus and the people would get it. So I think about how like I was doing organizing before I really knew, but
But
the point of turn was when we were feeding the homeless, and then it was a pride season. It was a pride season before I knew what pride was birthed out of, when I only knew as a promoter that pride was a party. And
mhm.
I didn't know that pride was, again, something to take serious. And we were trying to figure out like how to charge people and all this other stuff. And I just remember in my brain, just knowing the community, being in community with folks, being part of the community, being like, these niggas can't afford this shit.
Yeah.
Like, of, I think it was a moment of evaluating my principles, my
Mhm.
values, and being like, am I trying to get rich off
Mhm.
these niggas who I know like don't got it? Like,
Yeah.
is that my goal? Like, what's happening right now? And then it started to shift for me to being more interested. Like, shout out to Cha Cha, who really was like a strong organizing spirit where we're like, yeah, we fed the homeless more. We were interested in doing more, taking more opportunity to get engaged in organizing work.
Mhm.
Like, how can we help people fix their resumes? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? How could we just build resources for people to survive? And of course, partying is fun and all, but
But
like starting to really evaluate, like, oh my God, people are alcoholics. Oh my God, people are escaping.
no, for
People are
real.
on drugs. Like, hold on, we need to have condoms in the club. We need to be getting tested. This could be outreach.
Yeah.
We can use this. Like, if people are going to go anyway to unwind for the rest of the week, like, how are we also using this for outreach? So I think that was a point that it kind of like started to shift for me. And then I left Orlando and went to back to New York, and that's when I started like living in my truth. Like I kind of
Right.
like, chilled out for a bit and started living my truth. And that's when I got connected with Black Trans Media. I met Kim Watson. I met like
Period.
Jet Vaughn. I met Marquise. I met, oh my God, I met so many people in New York. And New York is just like for like community building to me. If you're just
I
trying to
hear that a
meet
lot
and mix
though.
with people, yeah, you just got to stay out the mess. But I definitely met with a lot of people, and that's just what kind of kicked it off. It was what I would use the words now is through what I was doing through the storytelling, I started to realize the material condition of the people. And I
Mm,
started to think further outside of like what the problem was. And I was very interested in how, for myself, to break out of a certain cycle as somebody who
yeah.
grew up, like not middle class. I thought I was middle class for so long until I was like, bitch, you was poor.
Okay, it's
Like
fine.
your mama made it look good. And I'm sorry, mama, you did a great job, but we
Yeah.
was poor. And it's not your fault. And it's not an indictment on nothing.
Yeah.
But realizing what I came from,
Mhm.
and then, just my history. My father was incarcerated for 10 years,
Okay.
which greatly shaped things because that's when my mother moved down south to get help from her mother who was down there. Another part of my mom moving from New York was, which I learned later in my life, was about stop and frisk. She knew
Mm,
Giuliani was about to fuck shit up, and she like wanted to get her kids out of there. She
yeah.
didn't want me to get caught up in that. So that was a piece of it. And then as I got older, having conversations with her about the work that I do, trying
Mm,
to like tie it back to a root. The earliest that I've ever been in a prison was as a youth. I want to say my mom could tell the age, but maybe 5,
okay.
where she took me to go visit one of her homegirls who got caught up just because she went to use the bathroom and he was doing a raid and she ended up getting some time. And
Damn.
like in that time, that was like the beginning of the war on drugs. My mom had made like a pact with all the black women on the block. Like, if any of y'all bitches get locked up, I'll make sure I come visit y'all. So
Yeah.
she used to go visit her. And I don't remember much about my childhood, but I do remember getting dressed, putting on my little outfit, lacing on my boots, going to the prison, all the like invasive stuff in the prison, and going to visit her, and her being happy to see my mom, happy to see a piece of youth that
Yeah.
like gave her some like, and I know people probably, I would love to talk to my mom more, criticized her. Why are you taking a child there? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And now that shaped, there's a limit of lived experiences, but that definitely shaped the road of, where I am today.
I love that. You speak about the youth and things like that. And what we like to do on Mouthy, we like to leave pearls of wisdom for folks. So when I think about our young people and all the adversities they have to face, what would be some advice you would have for a young person that may be coming up, struggling, or even may want to do this work,
Hmm.
but just kind of either don't know where to start or not assured of themselves at the moment?
Well, if I was talking to my younger self, I know I didn't used to listen, and I know most youth don't listen. So we could say it, and I think it's good to say, because then what I do say now is it's not that nobody told me, it's that I didn't listen, and it didn't
Mm,
click until now. Because I cannot say nobody ever told me. No, they told me. I
yeah.
just took what I wanted. That's definitely a hard question because for me, I would encourage my younger self or any youth that may hear this, uh, sharpen your relationship building and maintenance skills.
Mm,
Get comfortable with conflict because it's inevitable. My partner, Aya Simone, and I have engaged in study groups together. And one thing we came to mutually agree upon is that at the root of all this organizing work, no matter if you're like, oh, I'm communist, I'm socialist, I'm whatever, at the root of the work is people trying to learn how to be in better relationships with one another.
mm,
And it requires a level of self-awareness, emotional maturity, and a commitment to accountability that we need to build and maintain the connections to free us of the oppressive systems. And that includes, if not prioritizes, the relationship with yourself. Yeah.
I love that. Um, I definitely ain't, can't follow that up. But what I say to my youth is all the time is like I'm recognizing, especially having my daughter growing and becoming the person that she want to become, is that like I just want you to be proud of yourself in the moment of
Mm.
discovering yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it don't have to be perfect. It don't have to look like everybody around you. But if you
Mm-hmm.
got pride in who you are,
Mm-hmm.
that who can take that from you?
No, most
And
definitely.
so, like, I just recognized that if I was younger and I told myself to be as proud of myself as that I felt in the inside,
Yes. Yes.
baby, unstoppable. You
No,
hear me?
definitely, and gentle with ourselves.
Yeah.
And I know we coming in our last bit, but what I did want to leave us, especially in honor of Black August, is a lot of times when we talk about prison industrial complex,
Yeah.
mass incarceration, abolishing prisons, people often ask questions about like what will the world look like,
Yeah.
or like what'll be in place. And I did want to just close it out, just again honoring our people behind the wall, especially our TGI folk. I just sent out about 8 letters to Black TGI folks in various facilities. Majority were Black trans women in men's facilities. So definitely like to close out on a note that you know in my house, I have a poster that says, "We come closer to creating sanctuary when we abolish prisons." So, in my wildest dreams, right, the world would be a sanctuary. And for me, I also know that the world would have to have more as, let me make sure I pronounce people's names right because ain't nothing worse than saying somebody's name wrong. All right. As Derica Purnell once said, it's about having more avenues that prevent violence and crime from happening in the
Mm,
first place.
mm,
So, a little tidbit, if the people didn't know, the United States leads the world in total number of people incarcerated. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, there's almost 2 million people in 1,566 state prisons, 98 federal prisons, 3,116 local jails, 1,323 juvenile correctional facilities, 108 181 immigration detention facilities, and 80 Indian country jails, as well as in military prisons, civil commitment centers, state psychiatric hospitals, and prisons in the U.S. territories. So I'd like to leave this with, as we're working to, dismantle these systems of oppressions, we are working to dismantle the imperialist United
mm-hmm,
States of America.
mm-hmm.
And we just are calling for people to join that fight and definitely pay attention to what's happening with our African family over there on the continent. If you aren't in touch with your global struggle stuff, I know it's a lot. I'm struggling myself, y'all, but just try.
Yeah.
Read a little bit a day. A resource that I'll definitely give y'all is Black Agenda Report, Black Power Media, Black Alliance for Peace. These are all places that you can keep up with the struggle, because we will not be free as Black and African folk on this land in the United States, this stolen land, until our African family are free on the continent.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's real. So y'all already know. Being black in August, as I entitled this, is continue to be you, be in spaces, be proud to own who you are, the community in which you are part of, and how you show up in the world. Like when I see blackness in its entirety, I am so proud, especially in this month of August. Let the
Yeah,
people know if they want to get in contact with you and keep up with you where they can find you.
I don't want nobody to keep up with me, but
Okay, bro. Reach
no,
out.
no, no, I'm kidding. No, I don't. But social media, because we stay connected, and I do a
Yeah.
lot of stuff, and I organize, and I do want people to be able to ask me questions, or just holler at me to politics, just talk or
Period.
whatever. Invite y'all to stuff we do. But I'm Uncle Eli on Instagram, and that's UNCLEELI. And on Twitter, if that's your place, which I think it's X, not whatever it's called, it's right. It's Eli underscore Ja, JAH underscore rock,
Okay.
ROCK. And then I think that's the same on TikTok. So just holler at me. It's not hard to find me. Um, yeah, this was fun.
Thank you. It's always good talking to you and all the things. It's your girl, Miss Mouthy. Even when you what? Don't see me, you hear me. Till next time. Bye.